Well, I've had the engine running. I'm very pleased to say that this little engine is going to be fine. I still have to work on my inlet manifold and the position of my carburetor, but I've got a few ideas on that I'm going to work through. One of them is to make a small wedge to just realign the inlet manifold more to the center between the frame struts here. So I'm going to try that, but that's going to be quite straightforward. So I've changed the CDI to a DC unit. So here is my diagram. So it's a 4-wire system, okay, where I've got a DC 12-volt supply coming up from my alternator through my rectifier regulator. One pin goes off to the ignition coil, one pin is from the pulse generator inside the alternator crankcase, and the other pin goes to ground, and that's going fine. So I'll just give it a little bit of a crank over. I've got some Start Your Bastard. This stuff gets anything going. It's a bit of a squirt up here, and so I'm pretty pleased with that. That's about as much as I get going without having to keep the Start Your Bastard squirting in there all the time. But the main thing is that I know that the engine runs. The timing is okay. I do have to adjust the tappets, but that's easy. And so now I can go ahead with the next stage of my finishing off of this build. Really, it'll be tidying up my front end here, all of the controls for the headlight, and boxing up the headlight part. Then just tidying up this wiring, making it a bit more permanent into the original loom, which I can do quite easily, and put the covers on. I got to buy a battery for it, but yeah, I'm really happy about how that's working out. So remember, this engine came to me in a box of parts, so I've had to build the engine up pretty much from scratch. If you look at some of my earlier videos, and especially around the clutch area here, there was a lot of missing parts, parts that I had a little bit of difficulty in realizing that they were missing, just trying to work through on exploded parts diagrams to get an idea what parts I needed. So I'm happy how that's worked out. I've got a little bit of work to do still around this stud here for the exhaust manifold, and little clips, etc., to keep these cables away from the or the clutch cable away from the exhaust header, etc. But yeah, I'm pretty happy of the progress. So thought I'd share that with you, and yeah, I might give it another little flick here. A bit more Start Your Bastard. So yeah, I think without the carburetor and be able to get some steady fuel in there, that's about all I'm going to expect to get out of it. She's only a single cylinder there, and it's just going straight into the inlet ports there. So yeah, that's about right. I thought it might have run a little longer, but that's okay. The main thing is that it runs, and it ran like this the very first time I tried it, which was about 10 minutes ago. So yeah. So if anyone is doing this conversion from a Ctx200 frame, fitting in a what I believe is maybe a flat track racer 233cc, which is pretty similar to the CRF230L. Remember, the L is the version which has the alternator rectifier regulator for the electrics, quite different from the F, which has a separate AC supply for the CDI. So I'm running this as a DC system for my CDI, and that's working out perfectly. So if you're doing the same, I say go ahead and do it. The engine lines up perfectly with all of the mounts, pretty much because I think the Ctx200 frame, coming from Brazil, the CRF230 frame, very similar in its structure, except for the design difference here to allow the carburetor to come out to the side. I wasn't expecting too many problems with it lining up, and it hasn't been. So now once I get this carburetor in place, because I want the carburetor to sit just in here so I can easily adapt it to go into the airbox, and I'm thinking of just making a nice either printed on a 3D printer, just a little bit of a wedge there, just so that it flattens that more lined up, so it just lines up directly straight through to the center of the frame there for the inlet isolator, inlet manifold isolator to bolt onto. So yeah, it's an exciting day. Very happy about the progress that I'm making with the bike. Gives me motivation to carry on and get the rest of it going. I'm sure once I get the carburetor sorted, I have rebuilt the carburetor, put the tank on. Tank's just down in here, and we should have this bad boy in a state that I can actually have a little bit of a run up and down the road on. I've got to get a chain on it yet, and then I've got to just complete the brake here and the brake pedal, but I don't see that as being a major. I've got a good front brake, that should be enough for now. So that's a little update on the Ctx200 farm bike frame with a CRF230 engine, I believe, but if not a CRF230 engine, definitely it is a 230cc, which works out about 233cc Honda engine, probably from the 1990s generation, from what I can go from the engine numbers. You'll see that in some of my previous videos as well. Okay, I'll catch you in the next one.